A very good morning to all of you. I'm Hani Jalali from Amity School of Architecture and Planning. Under the domain of architecture, I'm continuing my series of presentation and in the elements of design. Today we'll be discussing planes. As discussed in the previous presentations, point and lines. Now when we place two lines parallel to each other, they have the ability to visually describe a plane. As we can see in this diagram, how two lines when projected can visually describe a plane. A transparent spatial membrane can be stretched between them to acknowledge their visual relationship, as it can be seen in this diagram. The closer these lines are to each other, the stronger will be the sense of plane they convey. So this is the visual relationship being formed. Over here we see series of lines. As closer they come to each other, they form a plane. The series of parallel lines, through their repetitiveness, reinforces our perception of the plane they describe. That is very much visible in this. Plane becomes real and original. Voids between the lines revert to being mere interruptions of the planar surfaces. For instance, you have this diagram, and this is actually a plane which has interruptions in between, which are symbolic of having voids. But eventually this is a plane. Now if we look at certain live examples of buildings where linear elements are defining planes and giving a sense of enclosure, like these are symbolic of linearity, which are enclosed by these planes. These planes are actually the elevations of the buildings. Similarly, this is linearity and this surface itself is a plane. So in fact, for sketching or for even drawing this, one would first need to make a plane and then divide the planes according to the width of the building. Similarly, whether it is a 1 point or 2 point perspective, you need planes or planar surfaces to define any edge. Next we have is next we have is the line extended in the direction other than its intrinsic direction becomes a plane. For example, if this is a line, if it is extended this way and not in the, so it's in its intrinsic direction and it forms a plane. It possesses length and width, but there is no depth. The moment you add depth to it, it will add some volume to it. Shape is identifying characteristic of a plane. So right now in this plane, the shape provided is a square. Perception of space can be distorted by perspective foreshortening. You will see the true shape of a plane only when viewed from the front. For instance, if you view this square, triangle and circle from front, it is only then you can make out what is the plane like. Otherwise, you will only see the skewed part of it, which is not the true shape or the true plane. Its surface, color, pattern, texture, all is affected by the visual weight and the stability. For example, the textures given in these shapes clearly defines the shape. Now, in the composition of a visual construction, a plane serves to define the limits of a volume. A plane should be regarded as a key element in the vocabulary of a design. So, with this one single plane, addition of another plane actually is enclosing a volume. So, by the use of planes, we are composing and enclosing a space into a form. That is why the next stage to planes is form. In architecture design, there are three generic types of planes: overhead plane, wall plane and the base plane. As shown in the diagram, overhead plane is roof sheltering interior spaces from climatic elements or ceiling plane. Wall planes, these are vertical orientation which are active in our normal field of vision and vital to enclosure of architectural spaces. Base plane, it can be the ground plane that serves as the physical foundation and visual base for building forms or floor planes that can form the platform on which people walk. So basically these three are generic to architecture. Thank you very much. Now I close the series of presentation with these three presentations, and students will now be able to attempt the flipped classroom activity, which will have the inline segment and the out of class segment. We can actually see the flipped classroom activity, which is based on the same topic for the first year students. The objectives will be defining elements of design, understanding visual field and positioning of an element, identifying elements in a building design and highlighting them. So basically the concepts covered are points, lines and planes, and these are the links to the videos and segments. Some out of class assignments have been given, on the basis of which students have to submit assignment and get it checked before attempting the out of class in class segment. The same will be shared, and active learning is enabled through a flipped classroom activity. Thank you.